Hey brewers, welcome back. This is part 2 of the work production XPA. We went right through to knockout. And now we're going to pitch the yeast, we're going to ferment the beer, we're going to ferment the XPA out, do a forced diacetyl test, and then we're going to send it to package, both keg and can. All we do is pitch and ditch at 80 grams per hectolitre. I've done it all. This is the most efficient and effective way for our size brewery. I've done starters. We used to use a yeast brink and grow our yeast. That's nearly a full-time job for a brewer to look after yeast. So pitch and ditch, that's what we do. It's all worked into the cost of the beer. It's quite cheap to make a beer, it's hard to sell a beer. So for every one brewer, you should have 2 marketers. Remember that saying? Goes a long way in this industry. And the other reason we pitch and ditch is because we like to use biotransformation, which means we hop on our yeast. So you don't get a clean yeast. You have to remove all the hop debris and the yeast debris. That's the other reason we pitch and ditch. Once it's oxygenated, straight up into the top of the fermenter, pitch dry. If you look on Safale's website, they actually recommend dry pitch, so it's much easier for us, less maintenance, less looking after yeast. You don't need a massive lab, so that's what we do. And we've done it all, like I said, starters. I used to have the big Erlenmeyer flask where I'd make a starter, pour it into the fermenter as we're knocking out, and I found that there was no difference between that fermentation and using the dry yeast method. Obviously there's people with a lot more intelligence than probably all of us combined engineering this product, and it works really well, so makes our life easy, which is good. What we have here is FV2, so we're going flat out on the pump on the knockout, and we've only got 15.3 degrees in the fermenter, so we want to bump that up. We're going to turn off our cold liquor pump. That's going to turn that off, and we're going to bring up our heat in FV2. Truth juice, Trevi. What do you reckon? Right, that's it, knocked out. This is how I tell when to stop. Now we're going to dump the trub out of the whirlpool. It's all the trub that goes to the trade waste. Time to clean the whirlpool. All right, now we're going to pitch the yeast. We're just going to sterilise our scissors. Clip it on the side just to release that vacuum. So we're pitching at 80 grams per hectolitre. So we've oxygenated already to 10 parts per million just through the carb stone. Just make sure once you've passed oxygen through, you just clear your carb stone with CO2. You don't want that to turn into dissolved oxygen. You just want to swirl it so it rides on top of the wort. And you'll make sure there's no big chunks of dried yeast. It's our final sample. This is what we'll log. So 1046.5, 1047 was target, and target pH is between 5.1 and 5.3. 5.2 is ideal, so a little tiny bit low, but that's all right. 5.14. We've got 2 hops today, HPA Galaxy, and we've got Citra as well. What we're going to do is we're going to blow 5 pounds of CO2 up through the spray ball, and what that's going to do is give us a CO2 barrier over the top of the beer, and it's going to come out the blower farm and circulate the CO2, and that way when we take off the manway, we're not going to introduce any oxygen into the beer, so we're making a blanket of CO2 across the top of the beer. In this instance with the XPA, we hop on to the yeast, and what that does, the yeast metabolises the hops and give off different flavours. It's called biotransformation. Do we see that CO2 smoke? There it is there. You see the increase. So what we're doing, we're filling the head of the uni tank. We're filling that up with CO2 now. We're going to loosen off our dry hop port, have everything ready to rock. In goes the Galaxy. Put our dry hop port back on. Positive pressure again in the uni tank, then we're just going to blow everything out of there. Alright, so we'll just put wherever. Dry hopped, not dickhead, OCD, whatever. So this is the official poor man's diacetyl test. What we need is 5 litre bucket. We're going to split our sample. And then we're going to add hot liquor to the sample. We're going to get our offsider series, set a timer for 20 minutes. And then we're going to whack this straight in the cool room. So we're actually introducing oxygen at the moment, so we're going to get some DO flavours as well, but we can ignore them. All we're chasing is diacetyl. What we're doing here is adding DO, or adding oxygen and heat. So they turn the precursor alpha-acetyl lactate into diacetyl. We'll get a picture of a forced diacetyl test up here, and we'll put it in the description below so you can work out how a yeast cell produces the diacetyl and then mops it up. All right, so we've chilled our forced diacetyl test down to roughly 4 degrees C. So you can pull that out and put it in a sample glass. And then we've got our control for the experiment, so you put that in the other one. Some brewers say you should do a blind tasting and ask another brewer, but we're all grown-ups here. If we smell diacetyl, we smell diacetyl. So that's our control. Smells like the XPA, and then now this is our forced diacetyl test. So on the nose, can't smell any. Give it a swirl, get the beak right in there. I can smell a couple of other off flavours just from the heating up and still having the yeast in suspension when I heated it up, but otherwise it's pretty good. Nah. We're looking for artificial butter, so like popcorn butter, you know that smell. We're also looking for butterscotch. Diacetyl itself is a flavour active molecule, so they use it to produce popcorn. So that's the artificial taste of butter you get in microwave popcorn. Ready to cold crash. So we've already had our last sample. We cold crashed yesterday to 0.5 degrees Celsius. So we know our tank pressure. We also, before we did that, we conducted a VDK rest, which is a vicinal diketone rest. I've dumped the cone twice. I've also logged our volumes that came out of the cone dumper 5000, which is 150 litres. So now I know the volume of the vessel, the temperature of the vessel. Now we're going to set the head pressure of the vessel. So we're slowly going to bleed the tank down to 10 pound, because that's the pressure we're chasing. So you want to slowly bleed your tank. We're going to add our paracetic acid. So we got our head pressure set now to 10 pound. We're going to add our CO2 now. So same deal with the CO2 line, get it up out of your way. Safety first. Safety never sleeps. Safety doesn't take a holiday, you know, all the bullshit. And we're going to just do the same as we always do when we add CO2 to a tank to avoid any oxygen ingress that becomes dissolved oxygen. We're just going to pop it on. That's it. All right, what we want to do first is open our non-return valve and our carb stone flat out, and that's going to blow off any hop debris or yeast cake that's soaked onto the carb stone. And we're just going to put our ear on the tank, and we're slowly going to bring that back till we've just got our beer rolling, and you can hear that. Doctor. Now we're going to go over to the scales. We're going to put our CO2 bottle onto the scales and set our volume so we don't waste CO2. And we're going to do a calculation now to see what the volume is that we're going to put into the tank. Just a quick one, always use a calculator when it comes to carving a beer. You don't want to overcarb it. We're going to get our volume first, which we'll have our trusty little calculator here. So we know we've got 2,400 litres went into the uni tank. We're going to minus our 150 from our two cone dumps. We've got 2250, and then we're going to times 5.4 grams per litre of CO2 equals 12.1. We're going to put 12.1 kilos of CO2 into FV3. Now we know our volume, we know our temperature, and we know our head pressure. So this is Carbonation 101. They're the three things you need to know: temperature, pressure, volume, and that's it. So now we're going to do our calculations. Because we're brewers, we're not dumb enough, we're not smart enough, there you go, we're not smart enough to do it in our head. All right, so you don't want to fuck this up. So always use your calculator. 55.25 is our target. Now brewers, this is the best carbonation tool you can have. You can get it anywhere on the interwebs. Just search temperature and pressure calculation chart for beer, and you'll get a chart like this. Yeah, this is quite bastardized because it's got fucking Fahrenheit and pounds per square inch. So I've just converted degrees Celsius with pounds. We're at 0.5, we know our tank's at 0.5, and we've got 10 pound of pressure, so we're chasing 2.8 parts. And this is as accurate as you can get for carbonation. Temperature plus pressure plus volume equals carbonation. Now what we're going to do, brewers, is test it. Taste and mouthfeel. And if you drink from a beaker at 9 in the morning, you're not an alcoholic. Also check out our New Zealand vlog. Go to this brewery. Good beer. Stand clear. Camera lady, watch your boots. Check it out. Give it some sunlight. See that carbonation, 2.8 parts. Beautiful. Couple of days. Today I'm going to show you how to keg off. First things first, we're going to take a sample of the XPA. So, you know the drill. Isopropyl, paracetic acid, straight in the boot, pretty standard. So this sensory test, smell, how it looks. Tastes like the XPA. All right, next step after we sample the product to make sure it's right, we get our kegs ready, all in line. So we're doing 8 today. There's 20 in this uni tank you end up with by the time you dump the cone and clear the beer out and maturate it. We end up with 1,000 litres of product, but we put 1,250 of wort into the tank. We grab our CO2 line, keep it up out of the way. We're going to want about 18 pound in the top of the uni tank. Next we're going to prep our racking arm butterfly valve, paracetic acid, pipe cleaner, isopropyl, and we'll just let that evaporate off, kill anything that's there. So just on top of the kegs. So which beer it is, XPA, and then the batch number, which is 211. The reason for that is so we have a reference number and batch number. 211's the batch and then it's XPA. All right, so now we can put our coupler together. And when we do this, we do it all below the paracetic acid line, so it'll stay full of acid. So we've got sight glass, opaque food grade product line. And then we've got our DSI A-type coupler with 2 ball valves. All right, just go around, check all your tri-clamps are tight. We're going to open our A-type coupler valve, the ball valve. Then we're going to open our racking arm. So we clear out any debris in the racking arm. That's it, that's good there. grab our first keg. Then we're going to cover that sight glass just to avoid any light struck funkiness. First thing you do is product line. We're going to open it up. You can hear the product going in under counter pressure. So we got pressure from the CO2 pushing down on the product, pushing it out the racking arm and into the keg. What we want to do is equalise the head pressure in the keg to the head pressure in the uni tank. So what we do, we've got the discharge line with the 6mm hose, and we slowly crack that. And that's it. You want to just feel it. Takes roughly about 3 to 4 minutes to fill a keg. Another trick you can use to see where the product is as well is just, you'll see a condensation line, and that's it there. We're full. So you just give it one little spurt where we're full product. Make sure, confirm, closed, and then take it off. Next one, same again, equalise the pressure. While that equalises, we'll take this keg straight to the cool room. Paracetic acid over the top. Hello brewers, today is canning day. So we're sending the XPA to package. What we've got is a closed loop the whole way, all the way to the Cody canning machine. And we run a CIP loop through this. Then we run a Sani loop with the paracetic acid. And then we run a purge through as well with CO2. This ensures we don't get any DO pickup.